business is to approve the meetings. I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Mr. Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed the minutes and found everything to be in order, so my motion is to approve. It is February the 6th. I didn't change the agenda. Sorry.
Yes, let me correct that. It is February the 6th. It says January 9th. I'm reading straight from my menu here, and I didn't get that changed, so sorry about that.
No, I didn't get that changed.
So we have a motion. Did I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Stevens. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next thing on our agenda is the investments report. Ted is out sick, so Lisa's going to fill in for us.
Yes, they had no sales this month. The LGIP rate is 1.69. That is a reduction from last month where it was 1.78.
Motion to approve is presented.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second, Mr. Johnson. And I don't think we transferred any money, so or is there any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next is our investment report, and again, Lisa, please.
Okay, starting with development tax. In January, we received $342,000 for the month. That brings our total for the year to $4,217,250. Our cash for the month totaled $316,638,628. With operating funds being $281,230,000 and borrowed funds being $35,408,000. Now, I told you last month that we would do the transfer of money from the debt service fund into the projects fund. We did that in January. We did the $15 million for schools, and we moved $11,050,000 into Rock Springs Elementary and $3,950,000 into Christiana Tan Oak, the elementary school project. That was where we're doing the site work. So that was the $15 million you'll see increase. And on the county side, we moved 7, but at the time that we were doing this in October, we had the whole listing of projects, and $7 million I thought would cover all the things that we need. So what we moved was the archive, $2,281,000. That was the estimate for that project, and we moved $4.2 million to the old judicial building. I thought that we might be a little further along, but you'll see in here unallocated, 171-219 unallocated. That's the balance of the $7 million that's really not assigned to a project, but when the mayor brings forward maybe some work on the one stop, we'll go here to pull funding to at least advance fund any architect engineering stuff that needs to happen. So if there's nothing on that, I'll move to the revenue, to where we are on that. And on this, dropping back to on the bottom of the first page, we've had that slight timing difference of that one big mortgage payment did not occur in January, but came in the 1st of February. But as of the end of January, the 58.46% of the tax roll was collected. It's a little less than what we were last year at this time of last year's tax roll, but seems to be in line when you look overall. As you look at each of the funds, it all makes a little more sense now when you look at it with all the tax money in there. And I've got the bottom line coded green. That looks to me like we are hitting at least bottom line what our revenue estimates are. The only one on the second page that I've kind of got a yellow, and that one is we are behind 1 month on collecting host agency funds. And I made a call, and we've got the report, we just didn't have the cash come in. So that's what is throwing that one off.
What
a
is
little
that?
bit. The host agency, that's where, for the BFI, is the $1.20 per ton of outside garbage coming in. That's what that is. So we should have 6 payments in by the end of January, and we only had 5.
Have we ever experienced a delay like that before,
Yes.
Mr. Reed? So this is.
Sometimes it happens. I just, when I call them, they said, oh, they've done their part, now they've got to call and say to the accounts payable, cut the check.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail, yeah. So anyway, it was just a timing. So I did reach out to them. So that's my report.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Lisa? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Johnson?
Second.
Commissioner Pearson, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, risk management financial report. Ed, welcome.
Good evening. Okay, on the 264 fund, your calendar year and your monthly totals will be the same because it's for the month of January. So if you look under the year-to-date, for the calendar year, you'll see $7,281,984 in revenue, with expenditures being $6,962,777, and the difference of that is $319,207. Under the fiscal year, you'll see the revenues doesn't look quite as good. The revenue's at $39,153,962 compared to expenditures at $46,246,378 for a difference of $7,092,416. And on the tracker, if you look for the July, total enrollment, 6,267 enrollees. Moving on to 266 fund. For the month of January, you'll see $54,969.52 compared to 2019 of $44,809.43. Going back to the month of January, workers' comp of the $54,000 total that you see in January, $11,948.51 was workers' comp. The OJI part of it was $43,021 in that total of $54,000. So you're beginning to see workers' comp claims is more than 10 years ago, and they're still a part of that. And year-to-date, on the next page, year-to-date is $278,023.38 compared to last year of $462,691.20. And to give you a general breakdown of this year's year-to-date, 33% of that is workers' comp, 67% of it is OJI. And next on the liability legal expenses for the year, under the month of January, you will see $31,638.85 compared to $25,908.56 for the same time last year. That's all of the report.
We saw this in the insurance committee, everything within line. I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion?
Second.
Commissioner Dodd. Are there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next is the sheriff's report here with the 2019 SCAAP grant and related general fund budget amendments for the sheriff's department. Welcome. Thank you.
We received the biggest award yet.
It's amazing.
For the SCAP grant, it's $55,896. And they did whittle us down a little bit on how we could use it compared to the 2018 allowances. But we're gonna put it in overtime because we're gonna be short. And training, so that money will be allotted in that fashion.
And what is this money used for?
Well, with 18, I could use it for a lot more, but a lot of it now's gone into programs, and I can't sustain programs. So I don't want to start something and then we don't have money for it, and I have to keep it going.
So using it for
Yeah.
overtime and salaries and wages isn't
Things I know
allowable.
we're going to.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Do you have any questions on the grant? Hearing none, I'll waiting for a motion
Motion to approve.
And the budget amendment.
and amendments.
And the budget.
So I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gooch is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, next up.
The Cops for Hire grants are back out. This is just, I'm seeking approval to y'all for let us to apply for this. It does not mean that we're going any further with it, okay? It is 75-25, so the first 3 years, and we'd have to maintain any amount of officers we got for the fourth year on our own. So we are obligated for that fourth year. But again, right now, we're just in the application part, if you will allow me to do that.
You're just asking permission to apply for this grant?
Right.
Correct. Okay. Motion to approve.
We got a
I'll
motion.
second,
Yeah.
but I also have a question. Would you have, because I know every year we try to incrementally staff you up to where you need to be. So would you have been asking, even if you hadn't been allowed to apply for the grant, and if you don't get it, would you be asking for 15 positions?
We're going to be asking for people this time, yes.
Mike, go ahead and give them the statistics you gave us in public safety on how many, he gets an audit and they basically say, here's what your staffing level should be, just,
We've used analysis through FBI and then through the International Chiefs Association, which are proven analysis. As presented last year, we were 35 short on our deputy level. CTAS did a study for us on detention, and they came in and did I've got a book yay thick that they gave us, and we were 59 short on detention officers. And that was as of last year. So, nationally, through the state of Tennessee, we've got some statistics today that sheriff's offices are experiencing about a 35% turnover, pretty much statewide, and we've seen a trend along with that. 12% unfilled jobs on just existing staffing levels. And so in both areas, we're trending right along with what the state is showing. So everybody's kind of in the same boat, people-wise, and then even getting people. So we just came from an association meeting today where all the sheriffs were together. Got a readout on that.
So how do you fill the 15 new spots if you're already short 12%?
Well, we've got to get the thing as far as getting the jobs approved, and what we're trying to do now is do a little bit better job in terms of who we are interviewing to get people that will stay with us. I think the job market has gotten to the point now where we are not losing as many people to outside employment that we were. So we're seeing some stabilization in that area now. And so I think at this point, we should be able to start building ourselves back. I don't know that in detention, that's going to probably always hold the case just by the nature of the job. As hard as we try to let these people know what that job entails, once you get back there and hear the door clang, it's a totally different situation. We've even gone to the point where applicants, we take them back. This is where you will be working.
And they still won't come to
Still,
work after.
yeah. So I've had them where we come in the last 2 days, the last week.
Yeah. Come
And
get
it's
my
it's
stuff.
not even for employment at other places, it's just, this is not for me. So that's a
What's the
different
turnaround
type
time
of.
for approval on applications like these?
I think you and I both can say, even if I came back and say, hey, they're offering us this, you're looking at 18 months.
18
you
months
know,
probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, if they told you.
It'll go into a new,
It'll probably,
fiscal year.
hopefully, it's February that we might know something.
Next year.
We may know something, but I wouldn't
By June,
anticipate this
yeah.
year on this, I really wouldn't.
It's a long process.
It's a process.
If it's approved, it still give us 3 years of wiggle room before we have to turn around.
Kind of works you
22.
into funding, fully
Right.
funding.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. I mean, it won't be a huge bite. It'll be,
I know Hamilton, 2017, Hamilton County asked for 5 and got 2. So there you go.
It's, and even what we asked for, it'd be a miracle, honestly, to get 15. We may get 1 or 2 out of it or something, if we get any.
but you have not because you ask not, right?
That's true. If we don't ask for it, we know it's 0. So when we have these things come available, we've got to take a shot at it.
Okay, we've got a motion and we have a second. Is there any other? Mr. Stevens?
I rarely vote for these grant applications to fund salaries because it ends up being an obligation that another commission is going to have to pay for. And I just don't like the idea of funding salaries with grant money that's going to expire. And so I sympathize with the need and certainly want to help fill the positions, but I just don't like obligating us with somebody else's money that's going to dry up, because you and I know as well, or you and I can both probably agree that those positions aren't going to go away once they're there. They're not going to be let go after year 4. They're going to stay forever.
But on the other side of that, we're going to be asking for these
Sure.
positions anyway. So what we're saying is I'll be asking for 100% funding for 3 years, starting immediately if we get it. Whereas we could possibly have some help on 75% of it. So, and I understand, where you're coming from, but on the other side of that, if I can get somebody to pay 3/4 of the salary on something we're going to ask for anyway.
Yeah, you're asking for a subsidy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Realizing that we will have that at that point in time, 4 years, the way we're going on it, we'll be asking for those people anyway. This is an opportunity where we can get some subsidy on at least 3/4 of the salary for 3 years.
And I like the thought of during their training years, it's subsidized. So perhaps if it's somebody that doesn't work out,
We're not there.
This is
in that full
entry level
cost.
only.
Entry level only.
So
so we're training them,
Yes.
getting them.
Yes.
So that helps. Despite this wisdom, that kind of helps me. So that maybe it is.
Commissioner Johnson?
I really think this is being proactive instead of reactive. That's the reason I'm supporting it.
Is this
It's-
similar
the
grant
need's
like
gonna be
the
there
fire
down the line.
department? Like we
Yes, sir. It's similar. Yes, sir.
It works the same.
Very much so.
And the commission has utilized these grants for several years, and it's been 20 years since they've been out.
It's been a while, but
It's
we
been a long
did have
while.
some.
There was back in the 90s, we brought in
95.
95, I guess it was, but we brought in a number of people off of a grant, but it's been that long, so.
Did it come out
Come
from
around.
public safety?
It did 100% approved, and what they noted in public safety was this is an application. If he actually gets people, he's got to come back to the public safety and then the budget. Of course, he's got to go with the mayor on the budget too, so we're a long way out, but
We are.
this is an opportunity to get part of it paid for. So.
And that's true. I mean, if we got approval for this, then we have to come back to all committees to get approval.
This is starting the process.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussions or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
No.
No, one no. Motion carries. We weren't transferring money, so we'll move this right along here. Okay, next on the agenda.
Requesting to apply for AAA traffic safety grant for $3,500. This is no matching funds, and we'll be using our highway safety enforcement program.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions? And this is applying for a grant again. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
And my next is a simple special purpose fund amendment to take $1848.60 into our 319 account.
And this is something we routinely do as those funds come in. So
It usually comes up to you all because of the way it comes in, so I don't get to ever take this to public safety.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Piercy, are there any other questions? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is our general fund budget transfer for emergency management. Welcome, Kevin.
Good evening. This is a transfer of funds within our existing budget from communications equipment to rentals, and this is for a tower site that's a transitional part of our radio system project. So this is to extend our existing lease onto this tower until we get our new towers up in place for the new radio system. So this is part of those contingency plans that we had in the system that was planned
But
for.
this rental will go away after
Yes.
our other
Yeah.
towers come up.
Yes, sir.
No new money, just transferring funds.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Johnson, motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Dodd, thank you. Are there any other questions for Kevin? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lyon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, you like it, didn't you?
Yes, sir. It's been a long day.
Right. Well, thank you for that long day. I know y'all been,
We've been busy, but our
We're busy.
program is working and we're heading in the right direction, so thank you.
All right, next up is Paul's, Mr. Gregory.
Not last, no, thank you. We're asking to move money within our budget, $15,000 from our contract vets, since we've been able to fill that position for the full-time vet position still. So we're just kind of limping it along as we go. Don't want to move too much over, so if we do hire someone, we don't have to transfer it back.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A couple of seconds, I'm not sure who came in first there. Are there any other questions for Mr. Gregory on this?
It says additional full-time, so how many full-time?
I have one full-time veterinarian.
And so now we're going to contract more because,
Well, we've had that second full-time budgeted position, which we've been unable to fill. So we have a couple of contract vets that come in, and we just pay them by the surgery to fill that gap until we
but we
get
have a
somebody.
budget for 2 full-time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you ever have anybody to apply?
We actually had someone that I thought we were going to get a hire on in December and early January, and they ended up backing out. It was very promising.
So, salary.
This person said the salary didn't scare them. Some of the things that bothered them was they had a young child, and their spouse also owns a local practice, and they were concerned how it was all going to mesh with their young child. So we're still trying. Eventually it will happen. It's just not happening. It's just not happening as quickly as we would like.
Is the pay too high?
Too high? You know, that's.
So they're too,
The pay didn't scare that one, but for, that's really the only applicant that we've been able to get anywhere with. I tried.
Have in-house childcare, to do some
Maybe we should go there. I'll get with Sonia and find out what the going rate for. My wife would take advantage of that too.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Gregory? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Have a good night.
Okay, next up is agricultural extension and Mr. Toby. I recognize him there. He's got his cap off, so.
I have some on my head. It's cold outside. We're looking at taking some money from our rent line, fund committed to ag, to change our camera system. Our current camera system is not on the county system, and different from the other county system in the county. So kind of different for our IT people to work with the private group that we have, and by changing it over, our current cameras don't work with this system, and as well we need some upgraded equipment to do that.
And these are digital
They
versus
are,
analog.
they are digital versus analog, yes.
That's what we want to say.
And it says here that you've got $12,000 that's being shared by PAWS. You're not bearing the full cost of it.
The total cost, I think, is like 28,000.
Right.
I think, yeah, because Cody, I think, I could get the new guys that Cody. Because Paul's will be using that same equipment that'll be housed out there, or I don't know where to house it, I don't know all that part, but this equipment will be housed for both buildings as they use that upgrade system.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Piercy. Any other questions for Mr. Toby? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question if I could.
Sure.
On this, looks like we got a thank you letter on this crops grant from the school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On this thank you note, for this crops grant, do you recall how much that grant was?
That actually is not through us.
That's
Soil conservation.
Okay, I'm sorry. You happen to know, or
What was the question?
on this thank you note for getting the COPS grant for
I think around $2,000 maybe. Crops.
Crops.
Okay.
from the formerly Lutheran Services about garden beds for the low income.
I know that through the Soil Conservation District, they do give monies.
Okay, I was just curious how much, and I thought y'all was part of that. So.
And I may be off, but I'm thinking 6,000.
6,000, okay.
I remember reading on that and that grant, and so like you said, that's helping a lot of low-income people raise their own food, so it's a really good program.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the Highway Department. Mr. Brooks and Mary. I see the boss is coming today, so that's...
Well, Mr. Brooks has been out since last night with all the rain and everything, so he asked me to come and sit in for this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have two budget amendments that are coming before you that were voted on Monday morning at our road board meeting. So do you have them in a certain order?
Postage first.
Postage first, okay. The first line item is for $2,300. We'll be pulling it from our Public Works funding and balance and put it into the new line item for Public Works for postal charges. This is going to be for, we're actually using the county mailing system for it. It's actually sending out the letters and the packets for the new road improvements for the Christiana school site area. We are sending them certified, receiving signatures back, making sure everybody's getting what they need and everything. So this is more than just sticking a stamp on an envelope. And so it was easier for us to maintain it and keep up with the cost by going through the county's postage system. And Mr. Mark Tucker come up with a $2,300 number, which is looking good because they're running from $8 to almost $20 a piece to mail. We've just started handing out a few of them, but we have got started.
You told us Tuesday night it would be more than one going per person. too.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Multiple miles.
Yes, sir. It's roughly from remembering Tuesday night, probably anywhere from 70 to about 84. I apologize, I didn't get an exact number before then. We've got, they're not just gonna get one letter, they will get a couple of letters and then packets with offers or here's what we got, here's what we'd like to do. So this is, like I said, not just one stamp to one person, it'll be a couple of packets to several of the landowners.
Motion to approve.
Since both of these are dealing with public works, can we not combine them?
It's up to the committee.
If that's agreeable with everybody, it's all combined, with public works, so just go ahead and proceed, if that's
Okay.
okay. Go ahead and proceed.
Well, wait a second, we do have a motion. You
Yeah,
want to
okay.
withdraw that, or you want to go ahead and vote on it?
Yeah, it came through Public Works with y'all, didn't you? Want to? Okay, so is it okay with you if we just combine both of them at the same time?
Oh, it's fine with me.
Okay.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Continue,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, all right. And the next one is going to be for a total of $22,360. We will be decreasing the fund ending balance, again, also out of the Public Works, for a new, we're calling it a data processing personnel. It will be a new hire, a new individual. Currently, Public Works has 7, and we will be putting 8. This gentleman actually will be doing some mapping. He has some hydraulics, in his background, so he's going to be an asset for us and also in engineering. In his office will be housed in the engineering department, so he'll be where he can see all their maps and things and also help with them. And this is for salary for him starting February to end of the year. And then you will see a complete salary for all 8 employees come budget time.
Are you ready? Motion to approve and vote.
Second. Motion, got a second. All right.
Both of them.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy? Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Yes. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. And
All right, thank you.
before you leave, I will say this. I want to thank you and Mr. Brooks, because this work that they're doing is getting this school roads ready for us, and this is money that we'd have to be allocating. Otherwise, he's bringing it out of his budget. So again, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, next up is the general fund amendment for health department. Is that it? There we go.
Good evening. These chairs sometimes don't want to cooperate with me. So the first thing I bring is an amendment to move funds within my budget. If you remember, we had some funds held back from the state that we got to use to do an isolation room in Murfreesboro. We did a couple there in our Murfreesboro site, and actually it came in a lot less than we were expecting to, and we had some extra money, so reached out to the state, said, could I do one in our Smyrna site? And they said yes, so just by moving this around, we'll be able to add that in the Smyrna site as well.
This came through Health and Ed unanimously, so I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
Thank you.
A motion to accept this. Do I hear a second? Second, Commissioner Dodd. Thank you. Any questions?
Just remind me, what's an isolation?
So any kind of communicable disease, if someone accidentally walked in with chicken pox, they didn't know they had it, we can put them in that room, and it keeps the air circulating only in that room instead of going throughout the whole building. So it's a great thing to have it both.
So you can take an existing room and
Yes.
have this money converted to...
That's exactly right. They just put some special vents and take it off the regular air vent system. It's done by HVAC people.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Yes. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes, motion carries. Amen.
Okay. And then also, the state has sent their contract for the funds we've already agreed and budgeted on for this budget year, and they're always, 6 months or so behind. So this is their agreement that they'd like signed and sent in saying that, and Lisa has looked at this and it matches what we have agreed to.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is our annual agreement. Nothing new here. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
All right, ambulance service fund budget amendment. Melanie, Carl, welcome.
Evening. I believe the first one you have is strictly from our donations. We received a total of $800, and we would like to move that from the revenue line item into our donations line item of $499.
Are we gonna do them both together?
That's up to you guys. If y'all want to continue, we can do that. I'll tell you what, the other one is completely separate. Let's do these in two, if that's all
Motion
right.
to approve the $800.
We got a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Piercy has a second. Any questions, Carl? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, now we look at that next one.
Okay. The next one, we're requesting to transfer $40,000 from our EMS 911 part-time personnel line into the convalescent part-time personnel line item. We continue to make more convalescent calls, and this should get us through the end of the fiscal year, the $40,000. The rest of these, the Social Security pensions, insurance, and Medicare, we had previously transferred into the payroll line items, but we failed to transfer into the fringe benefits. So this will just take care of that through the rest of the year.
And that's keeping their accounting separate from the regular
Yes,
ambulance
sir.
and the convalescent side.
Yes, sir.
That way we can look at them and say, hey, here's money we're making or losing, so.
It's just a housekeeping measure, isn't it?
Basically.
Basically. Came out of public safety.
It did.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion, do I hear a second, guys?
Second?
Commissioner Dodd, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Okay, next is the county clerk budget amendment. Lisa, you can do it.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is money that's set aside in a restricted fund balance, and it's requesting to move the $6,000 from our archive monies into her data processing equipment to purchase scanners.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Johnson, motion.
Second.
Second. Mr. Stevens, or any other questions for Lisa? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. All right, thank you, Lisa. Next is our general purpose school fund budget amendments. Welcome, Mr. Spurlock. Mr. Roderick.
Good afternoon or evening. We've got two general purpose budget amendments here, if we can do both of them. We'll start with this first one. Let me just kind of lay this out. This is a half of fiscal year clerk in our tennis office. We would have built it into our budget earlier. However, we had our coordinator who retired in December, and also this was the year that we had a new student management system. This budget amendment increases the function 72110 attendance department expenditure function for a half of fiscal year salary and benefits with one additional clerical position in the school attendance office. and it's be funded from the realized mixed drink tax revenue over original budget amounts. And I'm going to let Mr. Bodie tell a little bit about how that the funding has come about here.
On the mixed drink tax, and I just want to touch on this because I know Lisa, last month, I believe it was, when you were talking about how mixed drink, you're going through the revenue report, mixed drink tax was a little bit down. And we're of course increasing it in the 141 fund. I just wanted to let you know why we're doing that is, back when we were putting the budget together, and I just came on with Jeff when they were finishing up the budget, that was back during the time when there was a lawsuit at the state Supreme Court over the mixed drink tax. Several cities and counties were in a lawsuit over, does the cities have to share the mixed drink tax if they have their own school system with the county, or do they get to keep the mixed drink tax that is generated inside the city limits all to themselves? With that in mind, Jeff said we need to set this revenue down lower in case we don't get anything from Murfreesboro, because the city of Murfreesboro's always shared the mixed drink tax generated inside of Murfreesboro city limits with the county on the way to ADM. And that court case, of course, it was finished, and the courts ruled that said if the cities have their own school system K through 12, then they get to keep all of it. They don't have to share. And so it went against what, the former interpretation of the law was, because the law said you share mixed drink tax the same way you share county property tax for school purposes. However, Murfreesboro, their attorney, pined and was with ours too, said, hey, we only go to the 5th, 6th grade, and then we go on. So we're going to continue to share just like we've always done. And with that, we're bringing this budget amendment to bring it up to more than what's in line with what's actually coming in that mixed drink tax, because we're already over what we budgeted for the
We didn't think we're going to get it.
Right. The line item, I guess, increased by the original amount of $68,395. And what we're wanting to amend is a salary for a half fiscal year budget salary of $20,500, along with their costs and benefits, and this would bring the amount up to $33,683. So we recommend motion to approve this half fiscal year full-time equivalent clerk in our attendance department.
It was also discussed that it's been over a decade since you've added any staff.
It has
in this
been.
department.
We've probably gone from about 28,000 to close to 48,000 kids. And they not only do they do, in that department, they're responsible for not only our attendance and how we're funding, but also they're part DHA officer for the coordinator, which they hear discipline appeals and things of that nature.
Okay.
Did I understand you to say you had one to
He retired.
retire?
He did. He had 40 years of service not necessarily in tennis. He had probably about 10 years there, but he thought it was time to retire, and he's retired with 40 years, and he's enjoying himself, I guess.
Have you replaced him?
We did replace him. We replaced him with a very effective person, but it's a growth curve. It's a little different. She's been in our system, been an administrator, and been a math teacher previously in her career, but she's come in doing a fantastic job, but it does create a growth curve.
Is there a great difference in their pay scale? A 40-year man to a new person?
Oh, it's a little bit different, right? When you got 40 years in, that's a lot of time. Any questions on that one?
Go ahead with the second one, unless there's other questions. Hearing none.
All right, the second one is no additional personnel here, but it's also a budget amendment to purchase additional software and training expenditures, and also true up our payroll budget line item. This budget amendment is for the Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervention Services. And what this primarily does is this was set up with the approval of the county commission and the school board earlier where we set up a reserve in our GP, and this funds were transferred over from IDEA money over in federal money projects into our general purpose fund. And I think the budgeted amount it was somewhere about $1,236,060. We have amended some previously this year, but we're requesting a budget amendment for additional expenditures related to this comprehensive coordinated early intervention services in the amount of $438,511 in this restricted balance of in the GP to address the additional amount of money needed for those expenditures in training and software. Now, the actual amount was actually decreased by $12,026, so we're really not transferring that $438,511. We're actually working with the figure $426,485. Now, this funding primarily goes back to the designation that we received from the state on disproportionality, which they look at disciplinary action taken against underserved student population compared to all or compared to another area. And we have improved. We've improved. We'll just kind of see where we come next year on this, but hopefully we will address this.
And the way these funds are designed, it is a federal mandate.
It is a federal mandate, and this has been approved by the State Department of Education.
Motion to approve is presented.
Okay, that's on both. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dodd, thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. All right, next up is an amendment for the county buildings, and I think, Mayor, are you going to take this one?
I am, Mr. Mankin, again, if he's the county or something, so. Members, Mr. Chairman, this is to provide funds on 2 change orders for the courthouse renovation that we're currently going through. The first change order is primarily for the sidewalks, additional conduit, paver base, and porch resurfacing. So right out here in the front, the first section, when they were putting in the new brick pavers, they were supposed to put in at least a foot, 12 inches of gravel for vehicles to pull up on. But our architect, gentleman who was handling the project at the time when we met with the contractor, removed that for whatever reason, we don't know. So we went back and it was several thousand dollars that they're going to stick us to make it based on what they had originally told us. So Mr. Klein, our architect, I'm making him eat about $8,000. He didn't like it, but I felt sorry that he's going to have to eat the whole thing, so that's part of that. The sidewalks, so when the contractor brought this, if any of you recall back in the fall, they brought this, they've got a lift out there right now, cherry picker, but the one that they brought, it was a monster. It went up, how many feet, Steve? 120. 120 feet. It was the one that they brought in to take their guys up all to the cupola from the ground level, and they ended up, as they moved around our interior sidewalks, the weight of that piece of machinery broke a lot of our sections of sidewalk on the interior. So we identified each one of those. We took pictures of all of them as we noticed them every day as they were cracking. They're willing, they're going to eat that and repave all of that or re-pour that concrete. But with what we're doing on the outside, I'm asking for the change order to go in, since they're going to be doing a section here and then two, and then another section they'll have to pour new. We're going to have new versus old. I think in order to make the courthouse look the same, they're just going to do all the interior sidewalks with fresh concrete, where it all looks uniform and the same. We're spending too much money on this courthouse to make it look bright, fresh concrete versus 20, 30-year-old concrete. Second is on, and we talked about this in property management for those members that are on that, is here on the south side, ADA requirements that we have a second on a building like this. You got to have 2 ADA wheelchair accessible entrances. We only have one, which is here on the east side. So instead of having those small steps that come off the south side right here, we're having it, the architect should have us the plans by tomorrow. And I know we were supposed to get back to you, those members on property management, to let you know, we're still at the estimate. He doesn't have the plans done. Should have them by tomorrow or Monday, then it'll get them to the contractor. We're going in high at 40, but I think we'll come in at around 20 or 25. I know you questioned that, Commissioner Dodd. 40 seemed high. But in order to keep with the historical visual on the outside, instead of just plain concrete or concrete blocks on the side of where the ramp comes up, they're going to put in the concrete blocks, and then the fascia will be with brick. They'll paint it and then hand paint the mortar joints in keeping with the outside exterior, because I think the Historical Society has to sign off on that. That's what our architect told us yesterday. I was unaware of that for changing. So these two, the wheelchair ramp, the sidewalks, and porch resurfacing. There's on the east side, if you ever come in that direction, at some point in time, in order to get it up to the threshold, somebody over poured concrete just to make kind of a ramp, and it's all beginning to break and chip. So the resurfacing of those porches have to be done as well. I believe this money is not new money, it's in.
Ben is using the money.
He's got money in his budget.
His building improvement and using that.
Correct.
Into the
So you're not
overall
appropriating-
project.
You're not appropriating new money, it's just, he's got it and we're transferring it over to these two change orders.
Will that also take care of the west side porch?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed the other day it was badly cracked, so.
The percentage that the other company broke versus what's not broke, estimate 10, 20% broke, the other not broke.
No, it's about 30, 40%.
30, 40%.
Yeah.
Question for Mr. Dodd, he's got a background in concrete. Can you not pour distressed looking concrete to make it match old concrete?
I think that would be very difficult to get a good match. I'm not saying I advocate for pouring it all, but that would be a struggle.
Okay.
I am seeing some $87,000 in sidewalks and gravel.
I think they have 40,000, but I still think that we'll come down on the ADA ramp.
Right.
And that will also make it, having that ADA ramp accessible for like when we have events. I know when we have Christmas and we light the tree, it's a county-sponsored event. When we have the farmer's market, we have that, which is every Saturday. We have been allowing Main Street to keep these two restrooms coming in on the south side accessible. And by doing that, we'll be able to lock down the rest of the courthouse, lock those two interior doors right past the restroom, so we'll still be able to utilize that. Otherwise, we're going to have to start charging The only wheelchair ramp would be on this side, and we'd have to leave the whole courthouse open, and then we'd have to start charging to have a person in the building for the whole term of whatever the event may be in order to give access use to that. Otherwise, we start saying to everybody that wants to use the interior circle, then that you got to pay for porta potty. Porta potty's running $150 a day.
But you know, most any event center or building or anything where you can go have a program, a gathering or whatever, you either had to pay for the restroom or you rent your porta potty.
That's true.
You know.
Well, that's true, and some events do. I know this Arch Church and the old, out on Highway 99, the old Highway 99, the event church. Experience Church. Okay, they have 6,000 people, so they bring in and they build it into their budget. But Main Street is not. They don't have it into their budget to do that for every Saturday with Farmers Market, Earth Day, and all the other events that come. We open it up to numerous.
Jazz Fest.
Jazz Fest that's another sponsored event that we would leave it open for.
Earth Day.
Movies. Yeah, Earth Day.
Movies. Well, the first Friday music.
Friday night.
Friday night lights.
Friday night band, whatever it's called.
So what's our total budget right now on the renovation?
666,000 is what it is right
What?
now, so we're budgeted at, I believe.
Yeah.
And plus this would be.
Plus this.
Plus this. The, I'm sorry, Rhonda, I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, I know like for schools, Ms. Jolly does the special projects report for us. Is there any way for us to do something similar to that?
Oh, I've got it.
Okay. And then is there any way for us to see, because I'm concerned about, because I think very highly of Bart, and I've worked with him on projects in Smyrna before, but you know, a miss of $127,000 on a project this price, that's a big change order, that's a big number. So I'd just like to see kind of where are we and what we budgeted and where are we and what we're spending.
I've got reports similar to what you're looking at. I usually send it to property management whenever I update them.
I'd like it a little more detailed than just percentage of construction and completion.
No, it's exactly the same as what you're used to seeing in schools.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that might be good for us to see on all, projects, just so we can kind of keep up with what are we spending, what's the percentage, how close are we, are we coming in on budget, under budget. I just think it'd be smart for us to be looking at that.
I can, like I say, I usually give it to property management, but I can easily throw one into your
I didn't want to
mailbox.
interject, but it wasn't a miss. This is due to the Williams Company breaking those concrete sections is why we're having to do anything else.
But like the paver section up front, you said was kind of a
That
miss.
was a miss.
That was a miss, and he is credited back money for the gravel there, and it's documented as well, so.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the documentation. So we're having the watcher is telling us what he's going to eat and then telling us what we're going to pay and change it. It's a little bit convoluted.
Ben Mankin has caught so much stuff that.
Well, but we don't know that. I mean, I'm seeing, again, $87,000 in gravel and concrete, and all we see is $127,000 to do some stuff. And I don't want to micromanage any of this, but I just happen to, some of these numbers don't work for me, so I don't know if we need to start seeing more, I guess. You're saying it may cost 20, but we're going to budget 40.
That's the only number I have, the estimate right now.
Correct, but do we need to wait on presenting
he
the
said-
amendment till we have a little more substance? Or what happens to the other 20 if you don't spend it?
It'll go back to the
It goes
general
back in the
fund.
budget and you don't spend it.
And we scrutinize the ultimate change order when it does come in. The client's scrutinizing it, or?
Ben is scrutinizing it. We've been meeting every Friday to sit down with a contractor. Just like a couple of weeks ago, they had some guys and there was miscommunication on their part.
On the bushes, yeah, the
on bushes.
landscaping, yeah.
And they cut down, started whacking down our 50-year-old boxwoods. And they didn't understand that they weren't supposed to cut them out when we tried to tell them, no, don't do that. They were already cut out. So they tried to replant them after they were cut. So we immediately called Bart, but the supervisor has been demoted. So now they have another guy here. And they put him on premises. I think he's here every day, and Lisa has given space in her utility room or whatever it may be, to allow somebody with their company to be here daily to oversee what they're doing. I mean, it's amazing. You're in the contract business. Even when you're sitting there watching them, they will do things that they're not supposed to.
Are they going to replace the box?
Yes, sir. We've gotten quotes, and they're probably about $2,500 a piece. They were 50. They were when Jack put them in. Jack Carter, our landscaper, put them in. He and his father put them in 1986, and they were 15 years old then. And now they're about 50 years old, and they're $2,500 a piece. So we've got a credit coming on those.
Well, I just want to continue to voice some caution. We have a lot of building projects getting ready to start with PBA without a construction manager, which we approved. The commission did.
That's correct.
We promoted Ben, promoted somebody in his office to kind of take some of his slack, and I had mentioned in property management that perhaps we need to consider having a resource for Ben Mankin to reach out to on a consultation basis to make sure we've got somebody watching the hen house. I don't like that phrase, but I can't think of a better one. Somebody to watch. We have the people who are just some objective party to make sure.
And we've had that on a lot of our school projects, and it seemed to have worked very well. So, but you are able to get everything you're asking for in property
And
management.
it sounds like everything's available. That's what probably we can get the percentage of completion work, and we can see.
We've got everything documented here, and it's really been a good, clean project so far.
Okay, so you're pleased
It's
with
just, yeah, it's just.
And by the way, the building looks great.
It's getting there.
Driving around the square, it's really starting to pop and look crisp. So thank you for those efforts.
It's come together. It's going to look even better.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're putting the copper gutters up, and they're not real copper when you see them. They're copper. Copper.
Faux copper?
Yeah, copper aluminum, all right? But we chose it.
I just know when we started this, for whatever, and I could be remembering wrong, but I just had the number in my head that we had planned on this costing about $500,000. And now with this change, we're pushing right at $800,000. And so we just well, it seems like it came in at
66 right now.
6.
Yeah, we had 650 in, then we made a $16,000 change order after the bids were.
But when we first started talking about it, it seems like we were all thinking it was going to be $500,000. So that's kind of what, I guess, the number I still had in my head. So it's inching up. And I know you always have to budget for overages. I renovated an older house. I get it. I know you run into things that you weren't anticipating. So that part's not a surprise. But it's just numbers peaking up.
Well, and we came in today. If you recall, we spent $14,000 to fix the leak over here on the that would be the northwest side.
West side.
So we had to get Cody, that's in his department, GIS, and he had to get 4 totes to put in there because it's leaking right where it was leaking before. So
It hasn't on the other rains, but this one last night, it's leaking. We gotta get them back.
it's leaking again.
Yeah, I've got
It's under warranty.
2 or 3 buildings out that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, this is an old building.
The change order came through property management for that repair, and there was the $14,000 to get a grip of it. There was the $60,000 modest, or there was a bigger. As I recall, there were 3 layers.
$100,000 for a whole.
We opted for the cheaper one and get some design down, so that's the risk we take.
But they're coming back.
Until we get it some better design, a more holistic look at the whole, or global look at the whole roof.
Don't go get some of that Flex Seal like they advertise on TV. That's my request to the committee, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. We've heard the request and quite a bit of discussion. Is there any more discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Bill?
Looking to me, Paul?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the request with next month a more thorough accounting of work to date, percentage complete, and so forth.
I should have you that wheelchair round. I should have that confirmed up by next week, and we could email that out.
And let me rephrase that. So a motion to approve $127,000, and I think I would rather see next month a more itemized accounting of the just this amendment. Just this amendment.
Okay.
That's my motion.
You want to see the change order?
I want to see the change order itemized.
Is that not on your tablet?
Could.
127,000
It's not.
lump sum.
Give it to me.
You've got it.
I have it.
Okay.
I have it.
Commissioner Johnson?
Could I ask a question before I second the motion?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Trey, you're on property management. You comfortable with that, too, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. Okay, my second stands.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and some discussion. And this motion is to approve this amount and for us to get detailed accounting of this particular.
We could just put the
Changes.
change, once we get the
Of
change,
this change
the
order
second change
specifically.
order firmed up, we can just put the change orders in your folders.
Okay.
Okay.
That
That's
works.
fine. If that's fine with everybody, or we can email, whatever your committee would like.
Okay. Guys, it's up to you. If you want something further, now's the time to ask.
I think that'll cover the bases with your motion and with the contingency.
Folder, please.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Is this the last issue that we're going to expect to see?
That should be complete. I think we've got scheduled next week for new wallpaper in here. And I think they should be out of here by
What about carpet?
carpet going down the steps and the bullnose
I think
plates on each one of
March
the steps.
14th is, I think March 14th is drop
March,
dead date now.
that's their drop dead date. Otherwise, they have to start paying us.
Because they moved it back 30 days because of the concrete around.
That should be
And
out
they
here by
need
next
5 days inside. So we've blocked out that 5 days without meetings in 205. And so we can section it off and do one set of steps, the other set of steps, another. So.
Barring any unforeseen
Come all the way over.
circumstances.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I need
More
my
exercise.
steps.
Get your steps in.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries.
And I do, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I didn't want to put in my motion, I thought that was contaminating the motion, but I do think I would like to
You want the project
request the
report?
project report. Sure.
Okay.
Now, we're coming in on the tail end of this job to see a project report, obviously, because it's supposed to be out of here before our next meeting, but it would be a good
Well, I'll
practice.
go ahead and put it in your boxes as
True,
well.
true that.
I think it's probably just a good policy to have on all of our projects.
As a routine, I think it can be part of a report here.
You want it here?
Well, perhaps a property management or
Okay.
public works, but as
I mean, we
these
see
new
property
buildings
management.
take off, we need to start seeing that.
This is only one, the other two are going through PBA, so I mean, we can.
But they're still on, they're still on my project report.
Yeah, okay.
Even regardless of who goes through
Yeah,
it.
I think it would be, I personally would like to see them in a
That's fine.
public forum, just like the school board is under the WashFly managers and contractors. We still get it at that, it's
You want
still
to see
handy.
CCRC as well, because we own that building and we're getting ready to start the
It will
renovation
be in
out there.
that, it'll be in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's
If
the-
it's running through our capital projects fund, it will be in that report.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. That's okay.
Yes.
Can we just put it on the SharePoint so everybody can go look at it if
Okay.
they want to, and people don't have to make copies and
I can
send
do
out
that, just
emails,
give it to Rachel to put it on the.
and that way anybody in the public can look at it too.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. Something that came to mind, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
There was a group, was it just public safety that was brought up in about the group that wanted to come in and film in the courthouse? or we mentioned that to everybody here? Have y'all heard
Well,
that?
there is a group that called, and I turned them over to Steve to talk to them, but they want to come in and do a paranormal kind of thing. They've heard that Stones River Battlefield, and that it's a company out of,
Well, she's preliminary looking for courtroom space to do courtroom sittings, or sets for theater, movies, like what was done with Miranda Lambert or something, in the old judicial building. So,
This is
and then,
one too that goes.
yeah, and then there's another one that's Ghost, that they're wanting to check our paranormal haunted activities in our different county buildings.
I've never seen one down here, but Sonia says she's got one down at Hilton. That's what I've heard. It's William.
We do.
Oh.
His name's William.
She's talking to him.
I'm just curious, do we want
Okay,
to
wait,
know?
let me leave that.
Anyway, the
I'm happy not knowing.
the story that I got was that these guys are offering to pay to have the ability to come in and do their research, whatever it is they're doing. I kind of got a kick out of hearing it, but I thought it'd be interesting anyway, and let y'all know about it too, so.
Well, let them go up in the cupola if they want to go.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next
Besides, you have to defend yourself later, right?
Okay, we want to discuss the reclassification of position for the drug court, and I don't see Steve. Sonia, are you doing this one?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I didn't know I was going to be the Lone Ranger, but I can do it.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you after about her activities. And I'm sorry, I broke my glasses right before, so I'm kind of cattywampus here, so I can see. Whew. So during the budget process last year, our probation and recovery department at that time was under the direction of Trey King, and that was right before he went to the state and these type things. And he had met with me and talked about some things that he would like to do different with the probation and recovery in the early processes of the budget cycle. And I wasn't privy to what he disclosed in the meeting with the mayor and Lisa during their meetings, but one of the things that he had talked about and had talked with the employee in his department was to take one of the therapy positions and make it a clinical supervisor. Because of the programs that we've added, it started out that it was just drug court, had DUI and drugs, and then we've added on mental health, and we've added on veterans. With the additions of the courts, in programs that size, there's usually a clinical supervisor who would go over and renew. It's kind of like, for the best way that I can explain it, in my mind, is like a nurse practitioner having a doctor who has oversight. The nurse practitioner has to submit so many of their files for the doctor to review to make sure that they're operating in standard practice. So that's, in a roundabout way, what a clinical supervisor does for a program like Recovery Court. So the employee had talked about it, and in fact helped with some of the items that might be included in the job responsibilities. I have researched, we have a job description and all these things, but then when the budget came through, there was a transition at that time. So then we had a new director. Steve wasn't aware that had been discussed, and it wasn't brought forth. It was missed. But the employee was left believing, because they were acting in that role under Trey's supervision as the clinical supervisor. So about a month or so ago, I don't remember, Lisa, can you go back and look?
Like around, was it right after December?
Yeah, it was December 20th. Employee reached out and said, I know that the budget process was effective July 1, and I've not noticed a difference in my paycheck. Did I get, any pay
There had been a
increase
raise,
for the
but then-
right? She had gotten a raise because of the lift to the table and her shift raise. He said, "Is that really what accounted for this new duties that I'm doing?" She said she was performing duties, and Steve was like, I'm not sure. So he contacted me, and I was like, well, I'm not aware that was approved. Anyways, make this long story short, when they brought it forth to us, I contacted Lisa. We looked to see within the budget
So in the current budget year that we're in, there will be no new money. They've had, with some of the changes, they've had some vacancies when people leave to take other jobs, and then as we backfill, they come in at lower pay scales and stuff. So the $2,000 that we'll need to cover it for these last few periods of this fiscal year will be covered within it. It will, as if she stays in the position, if she is in the position whenever we do the budget year, of course, it would be an increase to her then, whatever staff or increases you guys may do. Plus, it was about another $3,500, because it was going to be a total of $5,500 total, was what the big difference would be. So it would be some additional monies next year, but not in the budget this year. And it has provided a lot of resources because we've got some new case managers. We also have counselors, so it's kind of the intermediary between the case manager. Case managers does all the intake, sets up the programs, make sure they have a place to live, food to eat, that they're going to their classes, that they do their drug testing, all those type things. Then the counselors go into the mid-level stuff to say, helping look for jobs, helping do resumes, some more intense classes. And then the therapist is when they're actually getting into what has caused them to continue the behaviors that they've continued that led them into the program to begin with. And so what she is doing is working more closely with the other therapists, with the counselors, and then any of the case managers that needs guidance to try to help them. And she has done a really good job and been very instrumental. She's been in this field for many years. She was with the Guidance Center before she came to drug court, and then has stayed with the program ever since. So I do think, based on the growth of this program and looking to hopefully add more openings for more people to be able to participate, it's a meaningful position that we're going to need to make sure that we're staying, on track with each, giving them the best care that we can.
Is she certified?
Oh yes, she's got
licensed clinical social worker.
Oh yes, she's got masters and yes, she's got all kinds of certifications. Her masters. She's been in clinical therapy for a long time.
You say she started these duties in July?
Well,
But was it reclassified?
it wasn't reclassified, right?
But she started the duties in July.
She was doing some of the work.
Okay.
As they were trying to figure out. But like I said, nobody knew that she was doing that because it happened under Trey's watch, just to see. He was using her initially as a tool to guide some of the newer people to make sure that they were, following the protocols. There's a lot of stipulations as far as HIPAA's related, and there's state and federal requirements when it relates to patient care. I mean, it's basically patient care, following the same protocols. So
We discussed that in public safety, that even though she'd been doing the job, had been told she accepted to do the extra work, that we would not be paying retroactively. So.
And she is aware of that because none of us knew and didn't know that she had been told nor authorized to do the work.
So this was started in
as soon as you approve it.
February.
It's a critical role.
It is.
And the mental health aspects could turn lives around. So I support that. Why isn't the director presenting this? I mean, it's such a big deal. I mean, to explain the components of that enterprise. You're talking HR. He's talking about how a department runs. So I just.
He explained it to public safety.
So y'all have heard it.
Yes, we took it through public safety.
Okay.
And,
sure, of course. I withdraw that question.
And I don't know where he's at tonight.
But y'all had a good
yeah, it was unanimously approved.
I'll move that we approve the request.
Second.
I want to discuss for a second. It feels to me like, though, we might owe her retroactive pay. Share with me that discussion.
Well, that's actually, I asked the question because I kind of felt the same way.
Right.
And they had said, well, we discussed it with her, and that's my understanding, is that it was discussed with her and it'd be corrected at this point, but we wouldn't do retroactive.
It wasn't in the budget request.
It wasn't in the budget request by Trey when he was here. He had discussed it with me, and I don't know what conversations, and do you even recall if he brought it up in the budget process?
I didn't have it in
So-
my documents.
I got a question though, with legally, even though she doesn't want it,
Well, it's not that she doesn't want it.
Okay.
I mean, you know, she wants the position, and I think she would be more than happy to have taken it back to do the work.
to not
Right.
Yeah, but
ask for it,
I think
but I feel like we have an obligation.
legally, I think we're liable.
And I would be
So you would endorse
okay with
that?
that. Yes, I would.
So what would that number be?
So I knew that there would be sufficient funds to go from here to the end.
We'd have to look and
I
see.
may have to have an amendment. I may, because I was only
Because it was,
looking at the money as
Well,
a, is there
I don't know.
sufficient funds to pay in that line from February
about another
forward?
$2,600.
Well, didn't you say it was 55 total? and
Total.
Then you're
20
talking about another,
$2,800 is what we referenced to make sure that there would be enough money in there for now. So it would be another $2,700 that you would have to look at to see that we had enough to cover. But
So,
where the problem came in is that even though, so to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like before it gets to you at budget time, and for each of the subcommittees is, in January, typically, the mayor and Lisa, we have a leadership meeting, and all the elected officials, constitutional officers in the departments get together and give out the budget materials and all those type things. Then, if anybody has a reclassification of a position, is asking for a new position or something like that, then they'll come meet with me. We'll talk about it. Meeting with me doesn't approve anything. Meeting with me just I get the financials to say, so when they meet with the mayor and Lisa, that they know what this position would cost, here's the job description for it, and then they talk about the need. And so that's where we get into the needs and wants. So while it was brought up to me by the prior leadership and asked for, if it's not on my sheet approved by this body, I don't put it in to my tables to
and
do.
we try to, between my department and.
We work very
me and
closely.
Sonia, it's like, I've got these, what do you have?
Right.
We kind of try to mesh that up, and if and we tell the department heads, make sure we both know, because if I don't know, it's not going into the document that says this is what the department request is. If that department head does not bring it forward to the mayor in our meetings, I'm not going to get it.
And I really don't feel like this is blame or, you
No, I
know,
don't either.
any of that. I want to treat people honourably and equitably.
I agree.
And it feels like the equitable solution here is to pay her.
Here's my concern. It's because we do this, and we've had situations where department folks gave, or I need you to do this, and then come later and say, well, they're doing it anyway, we should pay it. I want approval here on the front end, and, because I may just give duties, Mark, I have all these extra duties and say, oh, but you know, he's been doing this.
But this feels
We
a
need
little
to
bit
pay it.
different than that. This was a formal conversation of making a change.
But not.
And the timing of where it got dropped was in a change of leadership.
It wasn't in our meeting. It wasn't in our meeting, is what I'm saying. It didn't come to the mayor as a request. And that's what, you know, they'll
That's
talk
where
to
that's where the
Sonia.
drop is. So when they met, he met with me, but
didn't bring it
I didn't know
forward.
what was said to them. So
Trey didn't bring it.
See, we didn't have it, so that's what I'm saying.
and we didn't find out, like I said, till December, till she brought it up. So that's why when she brought it forth to me, I was like, well, that wasn't put in any of the budget recommendations from the department at that time, and then she relayed the conversation. So that's when we said, well, you know.
So she thought she got promoted back in July, and she really never did. Is that what I'm?
That's
You
what you
can
do.
assume that
You
she-
could
that
assume that,
conversation
I mean, I
occurred
haven't talked to
between her and
Right.
Trey, and obviously Steve was not aware of it because there was no documentation of that. So, I mean,
I mean, in this
I can
particular
see it both
situation,
ways, right.
I'm honestly willing to take it on the chin on this one because, you know, you have to look at every set of facts in every specific situation. And I could argue in this situation, the honorable and equitable thing to do is to pay her for the job that she did.
Has she been doing the job for the full time? You said partial earlier.
Yeah, I would have to see exactly what all of the clinical supervisory jobs she's been doing. I know that she's been reviewing some stuff, she's been training.
She's obviously been doing enough that she thought she
Right.
had the job and
Right.
called and said, where's my money?
Right.
You know, so in her mind at least, and obviously she was functioning that way in the department because it's not like people were saying something wasn't getting done, you know.
She didn't do the, one of the things that she brought forth, because there had been a change in leadership at that time when Trey went to the state, and there's a piece of the pie that she was not doing, which she had, because we were in a transition between leadership, she did not assume those duties, so she was doing, and I think that's why she was saying, you know, obviously she would like to go back to July 1, but she wasn't doing all those duties until she met with Steve and then said, well, here's the rest of the things that I was supposed to be doing. Do you want me to do them now? So I guess in my mind, if I was looking at it, I would feel more comfortable going back to December than all the way, you know, not that I'm not wanting to give her all the way back to July, but one of just the things that she wasn't creating the, let's see what was in here that she was telling me. There's a couple of things that she was telling me. She wasn't actually doing, so one of the things that this position does is look over the policies and procedures to make sure that they're in line with each of the programs, and she said that she wasn't reviewing those from a clinical standpoint. It's not from a rule standpoint, but more of a clinical of giving treatment. She said that she had not been doing that because one, there had not been, Trey had not been there. When did Trey leave? May? Was it April, May? I can't remember. So he was left, and then in the time that it took before Mr. Irving came in, you know, that there was a lapse. So she said, I didn't feel comfortable doing those things without our new director here to say, to give approval. So I didn't want to make changes to the way, the processes that we did, because a lot of the processes that she was responsible for. So,
Can I make a suggestion?
I mean, I can go either way. I'm sorry.
Well, and I'm the same one too, but I don't think it's right not to pay somebody for something they're doing, but I also don't think it's right for paying them for something they hadn't started. And we don't, it sounds like we don't really know, but my suggestion would be to go ahead and pass this as it is now, have them come back next month and report to us and let us know where we should pick that up, whether it's at the end of the budget season or start of the budget season or whatever. That's my suggestion.
I'd honestly really, if we're comfortable passing it as is now, I'd really like to see what's the true number back to July, and if we need to change that on the floor.
If not, at the commission meeting?
Yeah, then
Okay.
I'm willing to be the one to say I would take that on. I don't necessarily want to get in the weeds about every
It's not worth
little...
$2,700 really to...
Right, but I'm like, yeah, every little micromanagement thing that she did or didn't do, when you're talking about reviewing policies and, you know, I'm fine. I want to know what the numbers, it sounds in my head like we're talking about somewhere south of $10,000.
No, we're talking, the difference will be about $2,700.
Plus that.
So we're talking $2,700 plus benefits.
Plus this, yeah. So that...
5,000 total, 5,500 plus benefits.
Is it back to July?
Plus benefits. Mhm.
Oh, come on, y'all. We need to just do this now.
I'm not the one making the motions, that's up to you.
So if I made a motion to pay her for this position retroactive to July, not to exceed $5,000, you feel like that would cover, or $6,000?
All I'm saying is, if that's the thing, then what I'll do is go back and look and see if there's sufficient funds to pay it back to July, whether or not it needs an amendment, whether there's enough to pay it. If there is not, then we'll have an amendment, and it'll come out of fund balance. It's
Right.
it'll be not on consent.
Right.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Well, let me, if I can say, I like what the chairman had said, that as far as approving this and maybe giving Sonia Lisa the time that they need to go back and find out what did she actually do and how much would those earnings be, bring it back through the process, public safety and here.
So your
So at what
approval
point
would
she
be-
completed the duties?
Yeah, I think you need time.
So we could start, at least this next payroll, start it.
Yes, go ahead and do it now.
1st of February.
And then you take the time to go back and see what duties she actually did and how much those earnings would have been
At that point.
at that point, and
Okay.
then bring that number back through the process, through public safety, and back to here. Is that okay?
I guess I'm just going to get back here and say
Wait a
this is
second,
how much
Commissioner
it is.
Johnson, I wanted to recognize him. He's
Okay.
trying.
Are we not setting a precedent if we do this and then opening up a can of worms with, on down the line, you know?
So
That's something that concerns me because we've all been in situations where we've done more than actually our job responsibilities are. So,
well, that's the other duties as assigned. That's in every job description. It always says other duties as assigned. Because there's going to be times that there's going to be not somebody else there to do that job and you're going to have to assign it. The one thing that stands out to me the most, and we've reiterated this several times to our constitutional officers and our directors, is one, you don't give somebody a title until it's been approved by this body. And, you know, there have been, and that's really what I'd expressed to the employee in this position, is this wasn't approved by our legislative body. We are now being made aware of it, and that's why we said from the line in the sand. That's kind of where that came from, because a couple of years ago, we had someone in a position that did some of that, and you know, with the legislative body, a position number is, every position number is classified in the budget process, and that position number is assigned a title. And so when we reclassify, that's why I come before all the subcommittees and the budget committee and the full commission, because that title doesn't change unless you give us permission to change it. So I can't just change a title because we want to change a title. That's one of the
budgetary control. Right.
So to answer your question, the reason why we wanted to do it from the point that it was approved here is because the legislative body was not made aware and did not approve. Therefore, she nor I had the authority to make that change, because we only do as we're directed by this body.
well, I hate this phrase, but I'm afraid we'd be heading down a slippery slope.
And that's my concern, just because of seeing it happen and people be given titles, rank, and then come and say, well, where's my money? And it wasn't authorized.
Some of us have been here a while, have seen that happen, and it's ugly.
I'm just going to weigh in on more those 2 points. I don't want to be okay mistreating somebody today because I might mistreat somebody in the future. And so that's my, and then my other thing on that is, where you're talking about the slippery slope, you know, there are times we just have to exercise our judgment. And this, to me, feels like one of those times where we're just being asked to exercise our judgment. And then, you know, the other thing I was going to make to Trey is I don't want to take Sonia's time and you know, whoever else's time and take $10 chasing two, you know, to figure out, you know. So is that a wise use of that time? So I'm trying to be smart, trying to figure out, you know, if this is where we're going to end up at the end of the day. You know, I think it's the right thing to do in this specific situation, and I want that as documented in the minutes as it can be, so that it's not a precedent. But I feel like there was an expectation that was set up through a series of behavior. There were steps that didn't happen, that didn't make it official, but there was an expectation that was created, and there was a job that was done, and I feel like the woman needs to be compensated for it.
Okay, we've kicked this around a lot. Let's hear a motion one way or the other.
We got one.
All right, what is the motion?
Mr. Dodd is approve it as presented.
Okay, so we've got a motion to approve as presented. Do you want to amend it?
Yeah, I'm going to pursue getting the numbers, and if I will ask for that on the floor. I'll ask for the extra 2,700 or whatever it ends up being.
And I think all of us want to. I think all of us want to see that.
Because this item does not go to commission. to get
As is,
approved.
it
This ends it right here. Y'all approve
Okay.
salaries So unless it needs a budget amendment, that's the only time we look at the commission.
So I need to amend it.
For
if I-
the change.
So I need to amend it. if
Or
we're gonna-
we can do as they suggested, is that you
Maybe next month.
make the change from this point forward, 1st of February, and then us come back next month with, then she would
Right,
have
and do it
good
then.
information to say, this is the
Because if
date
you retro
that
it,
she
it's
started.
gonna get it either way.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable
this
with
is a
that,
rough
as long as we're looking at.
We go a
making
little
it whole.
deeper.
I just want to make her whole.
Yeah.
As long as we're looking at making her whole, and I have an opportunity to do that, I'm comfortable talking about it again next month.
Sounds good.
Call for the question.
All right.
Clarify the motion and the amendment.
Read the motion,
Make sure we know
please.
what we're voting.
There's no amendment.
Okay. Clarify the motion.
The motion is to reclassify this position to a clinical, from a clinical therapist to a clinical supervisor.
And this is with no retro pay. It's at this point forward.
That will be effective now. So
Effective the-
she will be paid what that position will be required, effective February 1, correct? Or February,
Yeah.
whatever. So no retroactive. And I want the person treated fairly too, but like I said, the precedent. But now I can live with that.
Okay. There being no other discussion with the question called for, call the roll,
There's no
please.
second for the question, so. Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. We'll discuss this
Thanks,
again
Sonia.
next month. All right. I believe
Didn't take that long, but it's good.
we're ready for Mr. Nolan, Mac Nolan, Solid Waste Fund Budget Amendments.
I'm talking about money.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Hey, Mac.
First one you should have is for tires. Is that what you have first?
Yeah.
We're requesting a $45,000 increase in our tire line item. Throughout the calendar year 2019, we never were fully staffed. We lost 7 drivers in 2019. 2 quit, or 2 died, 2 retired, and 3 went on to higher paying jobs. We're still 1 driver short, but with more trucks on the street, we're going through more and more tires. So we think it's going to be between $40,000 and $45,000 to get us through the end of the budget year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Okay.
Mr. Dodd.
He's got 2.
Okay. You guys want to vote on this or go on?
2 totally separate things.
This
No,
one's-
you're all right.
You're always getting
If you motion to draw, I'll second it, buddy.
I draw.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second to go ahead and vote on this, or?
To withdraw.
No, okay.
Withdraw.
A motion and second.
I'm sorry. Let's just
We may bring
continue
it back in a minute.
Let's look at our next one.
Well, it's really 2 totally different things.
I know, that's true.
One's Moore's Land,
That's true.
so I don't know. We on this? Oh, go ahead, I don't know.
All
I'll
right,
separate
please
them.
continue.
Separate them. I'll make a motion to approve the tires.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second for the tires. Any
Yes,
other
sir.
discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. You're rolling along.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Tuesday night, we had Jeff Postel from Triad come in and present to the Public Works Committee about proposed methane investigation for our landfill. What that would be entail would be drilling 5 holes through waste and actually building their way out with a methane gas well, and then we would have 10 to 15 holes drilled outside of waste just to investigate the soil depths and that type of stuff. And at the meeting Tuesday night, he's estimated it's going to be $60,000, and the actual paperwork he sent me is $62,000. So we're asking for a $62,000 budget amendment for the post-closure landfill budget in the engineering line item.
This says 60. Does that not need to be changed?
Yeah, your budget says 60, but what we got in yesterday after the meeting was 62.
Well, this amendment says 60 as well.
Yeah, so we
When
need
I asked him the other night, if you remember, he told me 60, so,
Yeah.
or told us 60.
And I wanted to separate these to make sure, we had a lot of conversation about this. I just want to make sure you were comfortable with
Oh, yeah.
all this.
Carry on.
Continue, yeah.
But the amendment, when he actually did the paperwork and sent it to us Wednesday, it's 60, his estimate is $62,000.
Why did he change it?
Because they asked him for a figure and he gave him an estimate, and then when he actually did the calculations Wednesday, it's 62.
He's an engineering company, right?
Yes.
And so they subcontract the actual core drilling to, remember
Yeah,
that?
he did say he wanted to get his driller to give him a full,
That's
confirmed number, I think, didn't he, Steve?
So you want this to be 62 instead of 60, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that too doesn't bother me. We need to get this thing core drilled. I'm in full support of core, getting this thing done. Is it enough hole, Steve? Do we leave it at 5 or?
I'd say we better leave it at 5 right now, because there will probably have to be more in the future.
This, 3 of us are on our waste committee, and this is doing 2 things. It's not just venting. By law, we've got to take care of the problem that we've got with the gas that's coming out of there, and that's going to help these 5 wells, but and also the other 15 around. But it's also going to help us if we decide that we want to mine, and we're putting bids out or requests for bids or proposals. If we decide that we want to go in and mine this property, people are going to want to know what is in there. And that's what this core drilling, these wells will do. Excuse me, go ahead.
In the draft RFI that we presented the other night to the committee, and the committee worked on it, talked about it, et cetera, we're telling everybody in the RFI who wants to bring any kind of idea forward that we will do the drilling, the testing, and make that available to them, so they'll know what, if say XYZ contractor wants to come in and they don't want to do the trash, but they're willing to come in and reclaim whatever is in our old landfill, and that's the only thing they want to do, then the information, the data will be there for them, and we need to know it, from a liability standpoint. It's because we don't know what's in there. We put the plate cap on it back in '98, but we don't know what's down in there, and there's no liner.
Any future drilling that's done to that landfill, we need to be totally involved in that. If another company won't let us drill our own holes, that don't need to happen. We need to drill them and let them pay for it, and have full control over drilling in that landfill.
That's right. We confirmed, we would demand the reports.
That's correct.
If somebody, that's right.
Well, we would need to do more than just demand a report. We would need to be just like this, have this man over that, because I'm not saying that people might not tell you the truth, but sometimes they might forget. And we need to know the facts on this.
That's too volatile not to.
And for those of you that are not on Public Works, what this will help us do is identify more closely what is actually in our landfill. We know we have environmental issues, and we know there's no way to repair them as it is. The only true way to fix that is going to be to dig the thing up. That could be expensive, but if we don't dig it up and we keep doing this forever, it's going to be 10 times more expensive. In the GBB study for an 11-year period, which we've already passed 2 of those years, was going to cost us $30 million to babysit this landfill in 11 years. So you can kind of expect that almost every 11 years, $30 million forever. And the estimate in the GBB study was roughly $6.5 million to dig it up, one-time cost. So this is going to give us the information we're going to need to help make those decisions.
All right, further discussion. Are there any other questions? Entertain a motion, if not.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Second.
At 62.
To approve.
62,000. You cool with 62?
All right. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Doss?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, let's do that. We'll save you a couple minutes, Doug.
You'll also be happy to know I only have one item, so we won't have to have separate motions on it.
But it's the biggest item of the night.
Well, go big or go home.
Right on. Don't go home, not yet.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I'm happy to bring to you tonight a contract between the county and the Greater Nashville Regional Council, GNRC, for an update to the county's comprehensive plan and long-range transportation plan. This went through Public Works the other night. I'm not going to go through the entire contract or scope of work or anything. Nick Christensen and I have gone back and forth with this, and with Michael Skipper, the executive director at GNRC. The comprehensive plan and the long-range transportation plan are kind of the foundational documents when it comes down to planning efforts and things that we have in the county. The long-range transportation plan was last comprehensively updated back in 2004. There was a small amendment made back in 2006, right after I started working here. The comprehensive plan, which was the first that we had for the county, was adopted in 2011. Plans of this nature you generally want to see updated every 5 years or so. So it's been past time for the long-range transportation plan, and it's right about that time, just a couple years after, for the comprehensive plan. This, of course, as things progress in time, growth happens, maybe things happen you didn't anticipate, more growth is happening than you're anticipating, so it's good to stay on top of those things. So I'm not asking for any money tonight because the first roughly half of this is already within our budget. On that first page, you'll see the total compensation for both of these plans. And when I say both plans, it's really going to be one plan with the long-range transportation plan as part of the comprehensive plan. So they'll be kind of part of the same document. But we budgeted this past, this current fiscal year, I should say, $105,000, and we would budget the balance of that in our upcoming budget over the next fiscal year. I've already spoke with Lisa about that, the mayor, and the deputy to the mayor as well, familiar with how we want to move forward with this. I like what he's proposing here as far as the scope of work. He really wants to get the county commission and planning commission involved in this for early buy-in as well, interviews and everything. So this is going to be a good project. I'm really looking forward to this. But if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So you be budgeting $115,000 more?
In the next fiscal year, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You need a motion? Okay, so moved.
Second.
Does anyone have any more questions for Doug? I know if I wasn't on Public Works, I'd have a lot. But I got most of mine answered the other night. And they did a good job. For one thing, why it's not being bid, since it's services that we don't have to bid.
Well, it's professional services, but so those are handled a little bit differently, but this would be handled as an interlocal agreement. We already pay membership dues in the GNRC, and actually Mayor Richard sits on the board that oversees Michael Skipper, who is the executive director.
See, you're chairman of Public Works, aren't you?
Vice Chair.
Vice chairman, okay. He came out unanimous.
Unanimous.
Excuse me for jumping in on that thing, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Are there any other questions? We've got a motion and a second. We're ready to call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Motion carries. It's a lot quicker, so it works.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we keep forgetting that.
Sometimes you just got to go last, too.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Doug. Lisa, I guess you've got health insurance.
Yes, that's a cleanup, it's a February cleanup after everybody has chosen their coverage for 2020. And this is setting all the budgets correctly, hopefully for the rest of the year. We budget $75,000 into a pool amount that we pull from for this purpose, and we'll be pulling $31,250 from that to fix all these various departments' health insurance.
So we basically got to clean up
It's clean up.
here and no need money. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second, Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Hear none, call roll.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes, motion carries. Let's see. Lisa, you've got a presentation of our debt service.
Yes, and
yet to do.
you're familiar to seeing these things. We treat this interfund capital, this interfund loan from the debt service, what I talked to y'all earlier about the moving money from the debt service to those two capital projects fund. We treat it just like it's any other debt, and we have to fill these forms out. It's a CT 0253, and it just basically gives you information, what it is. There is no cost to doing this. There's no interest rate. We're not charging ourselves interest. Anyway, it's for presentation purposes only.
And we actually saw where that money went
Right, earlier.
on our fund condition report.
So there's two of them. There's 15 million that we sent to schools capital projects, and then 7 million to the general capital projects fund.
Talking about 22 million. You need a motion to approve it?
It's
just
there for
presentation.
presentation.
Okay.
So it'll be
Okay.
presentation at the next meeting.
Presentation received.
You have so presented it.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other business? Hearing none, we're adjourned.